Great, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Megan. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified diabetes educator. And I am from the Midwest. So casseroles are my culture. And we've had a little bit of some tweaks in casseroles lately because, the old school casseroles could be really heavy in calories, really high in salt and saturated fat. So we've got a couple little tweaks for you today with some old favorites. But maybe there's some new things that you haven't tried yet that we're gonna have you get to experience, which is kind of fun. So you all like casseroles, which is good. You're in the right place. I'm gonna start with let's actually start with the hash. So the eggs in a basket of veggie hash, because I want to get our potatoes roasting right away. And this is going to be a 1 sheet pan meal. So basically a casserole is just anything that you cook in the oven. So it could be a full entree where everything's in that, like a goulash, for example, or it could be a side dish. Like you think about green bean casserole, that's more of like a side dish. So really casserole is just like how you cook it, right? You're cooking it in some sort of oven dish. So we are going to actually use a sheet pan for this one. And I've already peeled this. This is a russet potato. I've already peeled this. I'm going to do a little bit smaller dice than your recipe calls for. It calls for like 3/4 inch. I'm going to do more like a 1/2 inch dice, just so that this cooks a little faster since we are under some time pressure today. But what do you guys know about potatoes? What have you heard about potatoes? They're high in potassium. Yeah, they're really high in potassium, which is nice, a nice mineral to help with your blood pressure. They're also high in carbs. Sure, yeah, they're starch. Yep. They're also high in a type of carb that is really good for our digestive tract, which is fiber, right? That's partly why potatoes are high in carbs, is that there's fiber throughout that whole potato. It's not just the skin. So don't worry if you don't like the skin, you can peel it. That's fine because the fiber is throughout. We're also going to use a sweet potato. So how many of you guys cook with sweet potatoes? Yeah, okay. How are you using your sweet potatoes at home? You roast them in the oven and just like eat them. Oh, you're roasting them whole and then peeling them. Yeah, okay. How else are you guys using sweet potatoes?
I put them in the microwave and eat them about 2 minutes later.
You put them in the microwave and eat them like 2 minutes later. That's easy. Yeah, potatoes are so easy. What else?
Roasted and delicious with a maple lime crema.
Okay, so somebody online says roasted with a maple lime crema, which is sounds delicious. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was trying to get
Oh, interesting. So let me just repeat that for everybody. So at Costco, you found this combo of sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts that you could just throw on a sheet pan and roast. Oh, and zucchini in there. And then it looked like carrots, so nobody really knew Yeah, perfect. That's great. And, sweet potatoes kind of do taste a little bit like carrots in the sense that they are sweet, right? So that's totally fine. You can interchange them. And they are high in what nutrient that is also in carrots? Beta carotene, which is a precursor for vitamin A, right? So the carrots and the sweet potato with this dark orange color is a nice boost for that beta carotene, which is so good for immunity and eye health and skin health. And most people are not getting enough color in their diet. So this is a really nice way to get some color into your intake. Okay, so, and I picked a pretty big sweet potato. So you're gonna notice that your recipe says it makes 3 to 6 servings. So basically it makes 6 little eggs in a basket. But I will say, you know, some people want to have 2 eggs, right? You want that extra protein or you're really hungry. It's pretty hearty with all of these vegetables that we're going to put in here. So I will say that like 1 egg in a basket is pretty filling. But if you are going to be exercising or you just feel extra hungry that day, maybe you would do 2. So I did the nutrition facts there per egg in a basket. So we're kind of taking a, you know, a cue from how you would do eggs, like where you make a little hole in your toast and, you know, cook it that way. But instead of the toast, we're just doing vegetables and it's going to be all in the oven. Okay, so another thing that we're going to put in there is an entire chopped red bell pepper. You could do a different color if you wanted. Let me just see. Yeah, I'm baking these all together, the potatoes and the peppers and the onions. And notice that I'm doing kind of like a rough chop. So you don't have to get super small because you want your veggies to be like bite size. So it's just a rough chop. So it's pretty fast as far as your prep goes. And do have your oven heating ahead of time so you can put it into a hot oven. So this is called a hash. Does anybody know where that comes from? So a hash just basically is referring to hasher, which is the word in French. I did not say that with a French accent because I don't speak French, but it's basically the root of like hatchet, right? So it means to chop. So anything that you're just chopping like this could be a hash. So it could be like a veggie hash like we're doing today, or it could be like a steak hash, like a steak and onion hash, where you just chop up steak and onions, and it could be either in a skillet or it could be in the oven like we're doing today. But you know, anything that you kind of chop and mingle together could be considered a hash. And these recipes, I've got all 3 of the recipes today are from a dietitian who's a good friend of mine, Kim Larson. She is also a Midwest girl. She's from Wisconsin originally, so she knows her casseroles. And so I thought, well, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just use her recipes. I did tweak them just a little bit. Hot dish, you could call them hot dishes, yes. Yeah, it depends on which part of the Midwest you're from. Yep. With this onion, I'm just doing, you know, kind of big chunks as well. Just keep it chunky. So yeah, I just kind of took Kim's recipes out of her book. I'll show you that cookbook a little bit later. I don't have it out right now. And tweak them just a little bit. All right, what questions do you have so far about the hash? Is this all? Yeah.
Could you do it with the skin on the potatoes?
Woo! Yeah, you could do it with the skin on the potatoes. Oh, and I'm bleeding. Okay, I'm gonna take this and start over. So I'm gonna grab a Band-Aid and you guys can put some questions in the chat. And let's talk about casseroles. So what casseroles are you guys making at home already? Tuna noodle, yeah. That's a classic. Tater tot hot dish, that's a classic Midwest. That's the first casserole I ever learned how to make, was tater tot. Yeah, I love it. Any others?
Savory, 7-layer.
7-layer. What's a 7-layer casserole? I don't know that one.
Chicken and or beef Mexican casserole.
Okay. Yeah, chicken and or beef Mexican. So we are actually today, all of our recipes are going to be vegetarian, but you could add, beef. Like for example, we're doing some peppers, some stuffed peppers today that we're going to make vegetarian. But you could use beef, like a lean ground beef or a lean turkey or chicken instead. Okay. Don't worry, it didn't hurt. I heard you all like collectively go, it didn't hurt. The knife is so sharp, it's fine. Okay, so thinking about the stuffed peppers, so instead of the beef, we're actually gonna do something called a beef alternative. Have any of you had the Impossible Burger? Yeah, or like the Beyond Burger meat? Yeah. So they're made out of plant-based proteins. So they're like lentils or soy or, peas as your protein base. And then they come in these, packets, just like you would find beef. This is actually on sale at Safeway right now. So I got it, it was a little cheaper than the beef was, which was nice. And the nice thing about this is the fats that they're using in here now are like a combination of fats. So it's a little bit lower saturated fat compared to like your beef. But I will say if you're going with a really, really lean protein, like a lean beef or like a lean chicken or turkey, you're going to have lower saturated fat anyway. So don't feel like you have to do it this way. I just thought it'd be fun for you guys to try the Impossible Burger and have it vegetarian for those vegetarians in the crowd today. So, okay, I'm gonna transfer some things over to a different cutting board just to be extra safe. So these are all done. These are getting thrown. Okay.
One person that appreciates that all the castles are vegetarian today.
Yay. There's a comment online that there's appreciation for the vegetarian meals that she won't get to taste, she or he won't get to taste. Yeah, sorry people online, you don't get to taste it today, but maybe in the future you will join us. Okay, so let's put a little bit of oil on our hash and get this going. And there's a question online. Oh, in the corner. Yeah, so that's a really good point. There are no gluten items today. Let me double check that. And even our tortillas, the corn tortillas are certified gluten-free. So no gluten today. I didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of happened that way. So yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna toss this this hash around with a little bit of oil. I'm using some olive oil here that is mostly mono and poly unsaturated fat, so really good for heart health. Now for a normal roast, I would want a little bit more space. So this is gonna steam a little bit because it's so close together, but that's okay because we want this to be pretty tight in here. Because when we crack our eggs into our baskets, we want them to be like formed baskets. So you can go ahead and leave it, kind of tight in here. All right, we're gonna get this into the oven, but I forgot that garlic. So we gotta do the garlic because it's really, really tasty. So, and somebody would have noticed. So with the garlic, you could mince it up. You could even just use a little bit of garlic powder on here if you wanted. But I changed the recipe to be just slices because sometimes I kind of like that little bit of like, an actual bite of garlic, which can be nice. So, All right. 4 garlic cloves. There's quite a bit of garlic. We will pick a new knife. And it's okay if your garlic is sprouting just a little bit. It's still fine to eat, so don't worry about that.
How much saturated fat should a person have?
Yeah, okay, so really great question. So there's a question about how much saturated fat per day. So the recommendation, like if you're trying to watch your cholesterol, so the American Heart Association recommendation is for 7% or less of your total calorie intake to be from saturated fat. So for most women, it's like, 13 grams or less per day. So if you add up your total grams in your recipe, that's equivalent to about 7% of calorie intake for women who are, either middle-aged or older, not super active. Yeah. So it's not very much, with the saturated fat side of things. Let's get this in the oven. Is this one 425? I think this one is the higher one. Yep. Okay. And I've got the oven a little hotter than what the recipe says, just because we know it runs a little low. So, and we want to get this done in time. Okay, so that hash is going to bake for about 15 minutes. So we're going to check it in 15 minutes. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a 21 seasoning salt blend. That's like a no salt. Have you guys seen this at Costco or Trader Joe's? Both places have a 21 spice blend that's no salt added. So it's really nice on veggies, on fish, on chicken and soup. You can throw it anywhere. So we're gonna put a little bit of that on it. And then the special ingredient is a little smoked paprika. Bring out some of that smokiness in the dish and kind of balance the sweet with the sweet potato, because sometimes that sweet potato is a little overwhelming. And then we'll put it in for a little bit longer, and we'll also add Brussels sprouts at that time. So I'm gonna cut my Brussels sprouts in a little bit, but I want to get some other things started first before we do that, because we have time. So we're gonna move over to our bean chilada casserole, and I've got a 9x13 casserole dish here. So I just sprayed it down, and we're gonna do some layers. So with this recipe, originally it called for you to just have raw onions with the beans, because you're gonna cook it in the oven. But I kind of like the caramelized flavor of the onion when you cook it down a little bit. So I just did a little bit of like a light saute before you guys got here, and also so that it would smell good when you showed up. And then we're just gonna blend in 2 cans of black beans. And I didn't find the low sodium black beans at the store. So instead what I did was a combo of a regular and a no salt added. So nowadays you can find no salt canned goods, which is really nice, because then you get to control the sodium in that recipe. So I just did like a blend of 1 of each, and I'm going to blend in our spices to this as well. So we've got a little bit of oregano, some cumin, and then a little bit of chili. And that is actually where the term chilada comes from. Like you think about an enchilada, which literally means like with chili, with enchilar with chili. Yeah, do you have a question? Yeah, so the question is, if you are using dried beans, how do you know, how much to use? So it says right on there, like the can size, like the 15 ounce, you could just weigh it out, or you could do about 2 cups. So a can of beans is just a little bit less typically than 2 cups, but you can do a little bit more. Oh, you're saying like a dry to cooked, like, yeah, they usually like triple in size. So you would just measure it out for the recipe. You'll probably have extra beans. Yeah. Okay, so we've got this mixed up together. We're gonna also add some chilies. So that's, you know, that term, chilar. So chilies here. We also have a little chili powder. But you can choose mild. So it doesn't have to be spicy chilies. So I went with mild just because I know some people don't like the spice. But you could also get hot. You could get fire roasted, which I think I did choose. Yeah, fire roasted just to add a little bit more depth of flavor to this dish. And this is a pantry dish. So everything that you see here is like coming out of the pantry. So this is like a, you know, 15-minute throw it together at night after work kind of dish. And you don't have to necessarily, you know, go to the grocery store because we've got, you know, canned beans, canned chilies, canned tomato, a little bit of salsa. So super easy. And then we're going to do this layer effect. So I'm going to pick about 4 tortillas, tear them up into about quarters. And then we're just going to layer our pan. And I have put a little bit of spray in this pan in case you missed it, just so that our tortillas don't stick to the bottom. The corn is best to use just because it's a little more hearty, like it holds up a little better than the flour tortillas. So I would use the corn in this dish. Okay, and then we're gonna do some of our, about half of our bean and onion and chili mix. So this is like, you know, typical layering casserole, like you would think is very common. And then when you put this in the oven, because all of this is basically like cooked and ready to go, you don't really have to cook it that long. You're basically just heating it up to get it, like the flavors melded and to get the cheese melted as well. Alrighty. And I did go with a no salt added tomato sauce in here. And the reason for 3 different kinds of tomato is that your salsas usually have quite a bit of sodium. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that, but you know, we put a little salsa in here for a little, you know, little kick and the flavor that's in salsa, like the peppers and the onions. But typical salsa is really high salt. And so we basically like spread this out with a no salt tomato sauce so that we could control that sodium a little bit more. And you can find that easily at the grocery store. So, you know, right when you're looking at your labels, just look for that no salt added right on the front there. Okay, so we've got our layers. We're gonna do half of the cheese in here. This is just a shredded Mexican blend. And then we're gonna do it again. So one more layer. And you could change up what veggies are in here. So is there anything else you would want to add vegetable wise? Okay, so I've got cilantro for a topping. Yep, absolutely. You could add it initially, but it's kind of nice to have it fresh at the end. What else? You could add, yeah, whole corn. That's actually what I was thinking it was missing. Like I kind of want some whole corn in there. What else? A different bean, exactly. So you could do like pinto bean, you could do a red bean, you could do a blend of beans, like black and pinto together. That would be lovely. Kind of change it up. Ooh, yeah. So from online, tiny carrots or cooked sweet potato cubes. Love that. I was thinking also zucchini. So when you think about like the 3 sisters, which is corn, peppers, and zucchini, they really go well together. So that sounds good. Ooh, tomatillos. Yeah. Yum. Or what was the second thing? Hominy. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that sounds lovely. Okay, so just, the point is you can get creative with this and put in different vegetables. But know that if you're doing something that actually needs to be cooked, you're going to have to do a longer bake time, or you can saute it ahead of time. And then your bake time is going to be cut down. So not as much time in the oven. And notice that, there's just so many vegetables in here, just vegetable upon vegetable upon vegetable. So if you can do that with your casseroles where you're just bumping up the vegetables, that's a really nice way to get more fiber, get more of those nutrients, and it's going to be really filling. And notice that I'm not like smothering this in cheese. So if I was back home in Minnesota, this would be like a, 1/4-inch layer thick of cheese on the top. You don't need that much cheese. You can just do a sprinkle. It's okay. All right, so we're gonna put this in an oven, 350 degrees. And I'm just gonna leave it open because there's plenty of fluid in there. So you don't need to cover it. Yeah, so there's a question about vegan cheeses. Will they melt? Some will and some won't. So you want to specifically look for the ones that say they will melt. Yeah. Some are pretty good at it and some are not. Okay. Let's check our time. We've got another 5 minutes on the roasting. So I better get something started for this cauli pepper. So with our stuffed peppers, we're doing 2 new things in here that are maybe new to you. One is the Impossible ground quote unquote beef that we already talked about. And then the other is this cauliflower, which is riced. So has anybody used this riced cauliflower? Yeah, how have you used it? In casseroles or soups. Okay, nice. Yeah, that's a great idea with the soup. I've done like a risotto with it before that worked really well. That was nice. Okay, we're gonna put a little bit of oil. I'm gonna just double check my amounts in this pan over medium. I've got the olive oil again. And we're gonna saute some onions. I've already chopped my onions, so those are ready to go. Got to do a little bit more garlic for this dish. How many of you have made stuffed peppers before? So a few of you. And what went into the stuffed peppers? Usually rice goes into it, yeah? So we're basically like swapping in the rice cauliflower instead of the rice. So it's going to be a little bit lower in carbohydrates for anybody kind of watching that, especially if you have like diabetes and you're watching your blood sugar. This can be a nice alternative. But what else could you use besides the rice or besides the cauliflower? Any other ideas?
Rice, spices, cooked in tomato sauce.
Rice, spices, and tomato sauce. Yeah, that's the typical.
Maybe quinoa.
Quinoa, that's what I was thinking, because the quinoa will cook fast as well. And it's a little bit higher protein, a little bit higher fiber. So if you still wanted like a grain in there, you're kind of noticing that I'm just like a cut around the top of that pepper. And I'm just hollowing it out. So we've got 4 peppers per dish. Pick whatever color you like. But yeah, the quinoa would be nice. Or like a bulgur. Do you guys know bulgur? It's cracked wheat that cooks really, really fast.
Barley or farro?
Yeah, so from online, barley or farro. So the deal with barley or farro is you'll need to like pre-cook it because it's, really hearty. It takes quite a while to cook. Or you could get the 10-minute barley or farro. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but there's basically packages where they have already pre-cooked, like they've steamed and dried. Like at Trader Joe's, for example, there's like little packages of the 10-minute barley and farro where they've steamed it and dried it. So it's already par cooked for you. So then when you go to use it, it doesn't take 50 minutes. It has 10 minutes instead of 45 to 50. So that's a really good way to go. And then that actually could cook up pretty quickly, and you could use that in this dish. These are just the tops from the peppers. So, you know, try and cut down on food waste. Do use them up. You can just chop them, and we'll just saute them with our onions. That'll be great in there. Okay, let's get these onions going. I am gonna just use all of this just because we'll have a little bit more onion than usual. Okay. And then let's throw our peppers in there too, our extras. And then we'll do a little bit of garlic, add that flavor in there. Are you guys using fresh garlic, or do you have like the minced in the jar or the powder? What are you using at home? All of it, all of the above, depending. Yeah, the minced in the jar is really nice to have around, just, you know, in a pinch. It's really quick. Or even the garlic paste. I don't know if you've seen the paste in a tube. You can just like squeeze it out. That's really nice. And then, you know, a little powdered, which lasts forever. That's a nice option to always have on hand. You're using the granules? Yeah. Yeah, those are great. A lot of flavor. And then you can cut down on the salt, you know, when you're adding in those extra spices. And, you know, alliums specifically give you so much flavor, like leek or garlic or onion or shallots. Okay. I'm gonna bump this up a little bit. We're gonna get cooking a little faster here. Okay, so our potatoes in our oven should be almost ready. So while this is sauteing, I'm gonna work on shredding our Brussels sprouts. So how many of you like Brussels sprouts? How many of you have never had a Brussels sprout? Anybody? Okay. One time I did a cooking class, and there was a guy in the class who was 83 years old, and he had never had a Brussels sprout. So I got to feed him his first Brussels sprout, which was amazing, and he loved it. It was not in the Midwest. It was actually here. It was down in Edmonds. Okay, so yeah, so online shaved Brussels sprouts. So usually I would use a food processor for that. For this would make it really, really fast for you. Just like put on that shave blade, run it through a food processor if you have one, but you can do it by hand too. That totally works. I love the texture of fresh Brussels sprouts, like a fresh Brussels sprout salad. Has anybody had a, yeah, the texture is just so good. So it's basically like coleslaw, right? But just not so chunky, like it's a finer texture, which is so nice. But we're just doing it by hand today. So I did wash these Brussels sprouts, and then I basically took off all the ends. And once you take off that hardy end, it will allow you to then peel some of the outside skin pieces off of the Brussels sprouts, because you want to make sure you get rid of all of that, like the brown parts or the, you know, pieces that are a little bit bruised or damaged. And I know that this, you know, seems a little cumbersome. You could just buy a bag of coleslaw if you wanted, like that could work as well. Are you guys cooking with Brussels sprouts at home? Yeah, what are you doing with them? Oven roasting, okay, yep. Stir fry. Oh, do you like slice them up, or what do? You cut them up and put them in the stir fry? Okay. Anything else? Yeah, so the question was sometimes I boil the heck out of them. So along those lines, one of my favorite ways to have the Brussels sprouts is you put them in a slow cooker and you just cover them in salsa, just pour salsa over the top and just let them slow cook for, you know, like 4 hours on high or 6 hours on low. Just let them slow cook all day. And then you top it with just a little bit of balsamic vinegar at the end. So easy, but so good. And like the tomato with the Brussels sprout, it's so delicious. So that's my little tip on Brussels sprouts. Just to cover them. So like, you know, you get them in there and just put enough salsa to kind of cover, and they will cook down. So if they're not completely covered, that's okay, because they'll lose some moisture and kind of cook down in there, but enough to make it a little soupy so that you've got enough salsa, yeah, to pair with it. Oh, so yummy. Yeah, so somebody online with balsamic vinegar. Yeah. What were you gonna say? Like 4 hours on high or 6 on low. Yeah. Okay. Woo. Got our chopping pretty much done. Let's grab our hash. And then we will add our Brussels sprouts to it. Okay, and I'm gonna throw in the rice cauliflower. Let's actually do the meat first, because this was a little bit chilly. So let's do the meat first. And this Impossible Burger is not cooked. So you're gonna have to literally cook it just like you would beef. Yeah, so the question was, what about like the substitute meat crumbles? Yeah, I have used those. They're usually like soy based, the crumbles are. And they work really well for like tacos, you know, or like something like this. You could use it in like a dish for stuffing your peppers, or a casserole. They hide really well. So the one thing I'll say about some of these meat alternatives is they're a little bit higher in sodium, because naturally beef will have, and turkey and chicken, because it's meat, will have salt, just like we have salt in ourselves. But to get this to taste a little better, a lot of times they're adding a little bit more salt than what would be naturally in beef or chicken. So what I would do is then just cut down the salt in the recipe a little bit if you're really watching your sodium, or you're really watching your blood pressure. But from a heart health sense, like this Impossible Burger is nice because it's got those healthier fats, a blend of the healthier fats. But also, what would this have that beef and chicken and turkey do not have? Because it's plant-based, it has fiber. So you actually have like a protein that has some fiber in it. Yeah. So I will say, like, it's pretty filling because of that. Like, it's very satisfying because you've got both the protein and the fiber in there. And actually my husband prefers this. Like, his favorite is the Impossible beef. So we use this a lot at home for like tacos, and like if I were to make a goulash or some other casserole, this works really well in that. Okay, let's keep this going while I grab our potatoes. Yeah, so the question was, how much was it at Safeway today? It was on sale for $6.49. But I will say that this package is not quite a pound. It's 3/4 of a pound. It's 12 ounces. So when you're doing your comparison, you know, compared to the beef today was $9.99 a pound. I know. Well, it was a decent like lean, 96% lean beef. So I was doing the comparison. I was like, it's pretty much the same. So yeah, so I went with the Impossible. What was that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, going a little bit more plant-based, you've probably heard about that for health reasons. And it's because a lot of us are missing the amount of fiber in our diet, the amount of color. You know, you notice all of these recipes are really colorful. So all those phytonutrients that are in plants that are, you know, really healthy for us, we're just not eating enough of them, most of us. So if you can take some of your old recipes, like some of your casseroles, and even just add, you know, just add more veggies to them, make it go farther. Or like with a soup, you know, just add more veggies to it. Even if it's something that's already pre-done, like if you have a can of soup at home and you want to make it go a little further with adding a can of beans, you know, you can do that. You can bump up the plants. So there's a question online for if you have like a cream of something, like cream of chicken, cream of mushroom. I usually just make it. Like I just do mushrooms. You just saute your mushrooms. You add a little milk or a little half and half. You could also do, depending on how the recipe is, you know, goes, you could also do like a Greek style yogurt, which we're actually going to use some Greek yogurt today. And that's nice because then you've got a little bit higher protein with that. You can go with a lower fat and it will still be creamy. So yeah, you can kind of play around with that. And then if you want to just do it from the can, then the thing I would say is go for the lower sodium because, you know, a lot of those cream of whatever soups, really high salt. Okay, we're going to let this go, but I am going to add the rice cauliflower. And this was just from frozen. This is a 10-ounce bag. And just mix it in here. This will cook a little bit more in our peppers. So if it's not completely done, that's okay. But you know, for today, because we're not going to let the peppers cook that long, I'm probably going to get this all the way cooked before we put it in there. And then when you're baking your peppers, you just bake it to the consistency of like how soft you want your actual outside pepper to be, because this is basically going to be done by the time we put it in the pepper. Okay, we'll let that go. Okay, so we're going to add our Brussels sprouts, shaved Brussels sprouts, to our pan, and it's going to look really full, but that's okay. We're going to add just a little bit more oil to this as well, so we can bring out some of that flavor in the Brussels sprouts. And, you know, roast it a little bit. I'm just using all olive oil today, yeah, which is that heart healthy oil. It's extra virgin. And olive oil is mostly monounsaturated fat with a little bit of polyunsaturated fat, so it can actually lower cholesterol. And then the other thing that we've learned about olive oil is it's not just that the fats are good in there for heart health, but also the color. So again, thinking about plant-based colors, the olive oil has something called polyphenols that give it that green kind of tint to it. And those have been found to be really heart healthy as well. And they feed your microbiome. So they're really good for gut health as well. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little sprinkle of this 21 no salt seasoning spice blend. If you wanted to do something else, you could on there. And in fact, you don't even really need that. Really, the star is the paprika, the smoked paprika. And then you could just do pepper, a little bit of salt. That smells so good. Yum. Just do some fresh cracked pepper on here. Okay, and we will do just a little bit of sprinkle of salt. All of these recipes are really low sodium, and you can always add more to taste. But you notice that all of the recipes, so one trick when you're looking at your labels of things, if the sodium content is about around the calorie amount, that's a pretty good deal. So like, you know, if the pepper, like this pepper is 308 calories for a whole pepper, and the salt is 307 milligrams, it's about a 1-to-1 ratio, that's a good deal. Because if you think about like a 2,000 calorie diet, you're aiming for about 2,000 milligrams of sodium or less. It's a nice ballpark. So if you're standing in the aisle looking at like, you know, a soup or a frozen meal where you're just going to eat that whole thing, check the salt compared to the calories. And you'll notice in all these recipes that the sodium is either, you know, lower or right near that calorie amount. Okay, we're going to get this back in the oven. Keep it going. So then the last thing with that will be to pull it out and add our eggs to it after it's had just a little bit of time for those Brussels sprouts to get soft. Okay, questions about the recipes so far, or thoughts so far? Yeah. So there's a facility up in Stanwood. Sorry, this is like sizzling in my ears. So there's a facility in Stanwood that has been converted to plant-based meats. Oh, interesting. Do you know the name of it? Oh, it was Twin City Foods. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder what they're making up there. Wonder if there's some local things we could buy locally. Interesting. Okay, let's add our spices to this dish. I love the cleanup from these casseroles because it's like, you know, you have one big dish or you have one big pan or you have like one skillet and then a little baking dish. So it's really nice for not having so many dishes. Okay, so we've got our spice blend in there, which is basil, oregano, little touch of salt, some pepper. And then we're gonna go ahead and cook down our tomato stuff in here too. So I've got a little bit of sauce and some tomato paste. And again, I went with the no salt for the tomato sauce. I could not find the no salt tomato paste at the grocery store. So it's a good thing that this recipe is really already low sodium. And we're just gonna mix this in. So it's not gonna be too soupy. Sometimes I've had stuffed peppers in the past where they're really kind of soupy. Or like with the original recipe where you use rice, sometimes it takes a long time for that rice to get done. Whereas this cauliflower is pretty much ready to go. And then the recipe does call for a little bit of water if you need it. So I am going to add just some of this. Let's see if we need it all. A couple tablespoons just to help meld everything together. Okay. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Super fast. I'm going to turn this off. Can you guys smell it out there? Yeah. Yeah, yay. Okay, so now we're basically just gonna stuff our peppers and get them in the oven. I'm gonna go with a pretty big spoon, so this goes a little faster. So the trick with the peppers is just make sure that the first layer, you get it really down into those grooves so that you don't have any pockets. We're gonna try and use as much of this as we can. And a lot of times you will have a little bit of leftover, but I'm interested to see how this works with this Impossible Burger. Since it was only 12 ounces, I think it actually might be a better size for these peppers. The question is, can you freeze these? Absolutely. Yeah, so the peppers are going to be cooked anyway, right? So anytime you freeze plants especially, you basically break down some of that cellular structure because the water in the plant cells freezes and expands, so things get a little bit more mushy. But with this, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you're cooking it anyway, like you want it to be soft. So yeah, that can totally work. You can make a batch and then, you know, freeze 2 for later. Have 1 for dinner, 1 for lunch the next day. Freeze a couple. Yeah, good point. So sometimes you could cut a little bit, but the problem with yeah, don't cut too much though, because you'll lose your juices, right? You want to keep the juices, like you want to keep the moisture in there. So if you cut too much off the bottom, you don't want to lose any of your tomato sauce or any of your flavor. Yeah, and when you're at the grocery store, do look for peppers that are pretty like this one is not great, but honestly, I got the last 2 green bell peppers at the Safeway in Linwood. They were just out of peppers, which was interesting. So I, you know, got what I could. Okay, this is actually going to work perfectly, this amount. And I love that because then we don't have any waste. We don't have any leftovers. Okay. Yum. I don't think you're going to miss the rice at all, but it'll be interesting to see what you guys think about it. It's just gonna bake like that. Okay, and our enchilada casserole is looking good. It's in there like bubbling. So in the last few minutes here, let's go ahead and make our sauce. So we actually have an avocado Greek yogurt sauce to go with, could go with the peppers, but is in the recipe with the bean chilada. So I've got just a little bit of chili, a little bit of cumin. And we are going to put a little bit of lime juice in here too. You could do fresh squeezed, or you could just do one of these little doodads. And avocado. So do wash your avocado ahead of time. Wash your avocado. Wash all of your fruit that has skins on it, because whatever you are cutting through, like melon, for example, or like cutting through avocado skin, whatever's on the outside, you're going to transfer to the inside. So, germs, this has been sitting, who knows, who's touched it. Yeah, so do wash your fruit, even the fruit that you're going to peel, fruit that has peel on it. One of the tricks with avocado, you want it to be firm, no bruising, and just a little tiny bit of give in especially the neck area. And if you peel back, so this one, I don't know if you guys can see that, but this one, the stem has already been gone, right? So it's oxidized, it's brown in there. This one, the stem was on it. So if you have one that the stem is on and you can peel it off and look at, you're getting a little peek into the inside. So you can see that it's green and it doesn't have the black streakiness in it. Have you ever bought an avocado that has the black streaks? So you'll be able to see that if it has the black streaks, you'll see it when you peel back that stem. So that's a trick to, you know, buy a better avocado. And then
Down if you have, say, I have avocado left, put it upside down in a container, add milk to it, put a lid on it, and it'll be just as green the next day as it was the day you put it in there.
yeah, so the comment was, let's say you have avocado left, like you're only going to use half an avocado at a time. You can flip it over and put some form of acid. You were saying milk, which has lactic acid, or like a citric acid, or like, you know, citrus, like lemon or lime that has the citric acid and the ascorbic acid, the vitamin C, that is an antioxidant, right? So you're preventing browning with that. And yeah, it'll last, you know, at least the next day. It'll still be good. Yeah.
I've had it a couple days in there, and it's still just as green as when I put it in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is a myth out there about leaving the pit in, that helps. And actually that has been debunked. We know that doesn't actually work. Now, if you are leaving the pit in, you know, and it's like in here in the hole, and then you pull it out and it wasn't exposed to air, of course, right? You know, you're gonna not have that one part be oxidized, but putting it in like your guacamole or whatever, that's an urban myth. So you don't have to keep the pit. All right. What else goes in here? I think that's pretty much it. I'm making a double batch because it's really good. And so I want everybody to get a taste of this avocado sauce. And we're just gonna leave it chunky. So it's basically just stir this up and call it good. You could, you know, puree or blend it if you wanted, but I like it with the avocado chunks in there. So it's a nice way to go. Okie dokie. Okay, then the last thing is we're going to add our eggs to our hash. So it should be good to do that. Let's pull it out and see how we're looking. And then I'll show you the enchilada recipe as well. But let's just stir this up really quick. So with your, you know, with your cooking, when you're going low sodium or you're really trying to like watch what's in your casseroles, especially, one nice way to kind of bump up the flavor is with your toppings or like with your sauce. So you'll notice that we've got olives and green onions and cilantro and some salsa, and then we'll have this avocado topping as well, because that can really bump up the flavor of your dishes and give you a little more nutrition as well. Okay. Okay, so our Brussels sprouts are getting kind of wilted, and we're just gonna go ahead and like make little holes in here for our eggs. I think I will actually do, because we've got quite a few people here, so I'm gonna do more eggs than the recipe calls for. I'm gonna do 8 instead of 6, because we've got the extra eggs and we might as well use them. Yeah, I know. Yeah, luckily I could find the eggs. I know we've got kind of an egg issue right now. You could use, you know, egg beaters if you wanted, but I will say that, you know, the eggs are so nice. You've got the yolk in there and it looks really good. Or just wait till the eggs are back. Yeah, these were kind of expensive in the store, I will say. Usually eggs are one of the cheapest whole protein options. So, okay, one more. This is going to bake for about another 7 minutes. So while that's going, I'll show you these other things. All right, here's our enchilada. One thing I like about this is it's not fussy. Like we didn't spend time rolling, stuffing, you know, and then the tortillas break and then you're upset and like, it doesn't matter. Just mix all those flavors together. It's going to taste just as good with tearing up those tortillas. My husband and I had this the other night for dinner and then used some extra like crispy corn tortillas as well, just as like finishing up that last little bit. So you could add that. But super, super easy. Okay. Put a little spoon in this one. You guys are gonna get to try these. This one is ready and we've got our toppings. So what we might do is while we're waiting for the peppers and the eggs to finish, we'll just have you come through and do like one, pass with this, and then we'll just do it kind of like rotation style as things come out of the oven. Any last questions or comments on the recipes from today? So most of them they're low calorie. Yeah, let me actually show you that book. So they're actually from a book for heart health specifically. It's this Reducing High Blood Pressure for Beginners cookbook by Kim Larson. And they're low calorie, higher fiber. Her recipe actually called for the lean ground beef in there, and then I just swapped in the Impossible Burger. And then they're all low salt for managing blood pressure. So if you guys want to look at this, I'll leave this out as well. Good question. Thank you for reminding me about that. All right. Well, thanks to everybody online as well. Thanks for your input, and maybe we'll see you at future classes. Hopefully you guys will try some of these recipes or adjust some of your casseroles that you're already making at home. Add those veggies, lower the salt, add your spices, add your toppings, and yeah, happy cooking.